Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all still awake. Let's get this blood flowing. I'm Rosales, and before I actually hit the play button, because this is timed, I'm going to speak from the perspective of a single person and a singular person with a very active and busy life. So let's just jump right on in. My name is Roslyn Rosales, and today I'm going to talk to you about sustainable growth with ACA. I have this presentation time just right, so I'm going to try to keep up with the beats. But I do have some pauses in here in case you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer those. I'm more of a storyteller, so I'm going to connect the dots from the very beginning to where I am today. And I'm going to share with you the methods and the tools that I use throughout my journey. After everyone is done speaking today, I want you to take away this, that there is more than one way to build a business. And it comes down to two things. One, finding a product or products you believe in. And two, finding a method that works well for your schedule and your personality. So I was born in San Antonio, Texas. I have one sister and we were raised by a single mom. We come from a really large military background, big family. In fact, my great-great-grandfather has an interesting story. His name is Melitón Morales and was born in Tamaulipas, Mexico, which is right across the border. At the age of 8, he was taken captive by Apache Indians and was held captive until he was 17 years old. He forgets Spanish and eventually adopts the Indian way of life. Well, somewhere along the line, he's traded from the Apaches to the Delaware tribe for a quart of whiskey and a blanket. And that is something that he said he never forgot about the price of his life. A lady in the Delaware tribe sees something special in him and decides to help him escape. So she sets out a horse, and in the middle of the night, he takes off to his freedom. He eventually lands in Kansas, and then there's a 10-year gap where we're not sure what happens. But eventually, the Civil War starts to happen, and he feels that it's his personal obligation, having been a captive himself, to help abolish slavery. So he joins the 2nd Regiment Texas Cavalry in 1865 and serves 1 year. He reconnects with his mom in Mexico, relearns Spanish, and then comes back to Texas with a new wife. With them, they bring 2,000 sheep and 200 Spanish goats, and they settle on over 600 acres of land. While there, he establishes a local government and a local school system. So to say that my great-great-grandfather has an interesting life is an understatement. My great-grandfather and my grandfathers both also served. My grandfather on the end is my mom's dad, and he was a disciplinarian, but I learned a lot from him, and he was very active in my childhood. My grandfather in the middle is my dad's dad, and he is a big teddy bear. He was stationed in the Aleutian Islands. If you know anything about Alaska, it's a chain of islands that's really like being on the edge of the world. It is known for its extremely harsh climate and its black beaches. The sand is black. My grandfather gets shot in the line of duty, gets frostbite, and in order to survive, he plays dead. So had he not played dead, I don't think I'd be here today. And this is what the islands look like. Very harsh terrain. My father enlists in the Air Force and serves one tour at Vietnam. And my mom has always been very supportive of veterans because her entire loved ones went off to war. So from my family, I learned three important things: the importance of discipline, hard work, and education. I was also raised outside of Kelly and Lackland Air Force Base, so to see the bombers flying overhead was just a way of life for me. Because my family was so supportive with my education, they were really excited when I told them I was going to enroll at the University of Texas. So I'm a Longhorn. I studied social work and psychology, and I have degrees in both. I have 2 degrees in both. And towards the end of my college career, I fall in love with somebody, and of course, it happens to be somebody in the military. It's a guy that's a sniper, and he refers to himself as a Cajun Tennessee redneck. Those are his words, not mine. He's half from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and half from Tennessee. And he talked just like the character from The Water Boy. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, yeah, we had a lot of laughs over that. So at this point, it's 2001, 9/11 just happened, and we both decide to get engaged. I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, but the engagement only lasts a couple of months. So I have a really important decision to make. Either come back to Texas, where I feel like I've outgrown everybody and everything, or start fresh in Nashville, where I know no one, and start from the beginning. So I decided to live in Nashville and I end up staying there for 8 years. In the beginning, I also even get my license in health and insurance, health and life, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And I end up working for two really high-strung financial planners from New York and Connecticut. I develop high blood pressure from working with them. And even though they pay me all right and I've got decent coverage with health-wise, it doesn't cover the bills. So I decide to go into the restaurant and bar industry. I end up at the Wolf of Wall Street of restaurants. It is completely debaucherous. Everyone's doing all the things, and it's very posh. There's got a lot of athletes coming in, like Peyton Manning and Jessica Simpson and all these people. Well, there I develop a really close relationship with my friends. We become like family, and we're still friends to this day. I meet my friend Jenny, and we've been friends since about 2006 and 2007. We're like two peas in a pod, and we make each other laugh. Well, Jenny ends up dating somebody named Steve. And Steve and Jenny are married. And it's funny because I know some of you in this room know exactly who Steve Thurman is because of the industry that we're in. So Steve becomes a final expense and Medicare broker. At this time, I've moved back to San Antonio to be with my family, and I'm still working in the restaurant and bar industry. And Steve says, you know, a good idea to get started with your insurance career is to find a final expense organization to hold your contracts. So he suggests something that was at the time really popular, and that's insurance forums. And I know David Dufort's still in there, but he's like the only one that I recognize because now Facebook has gotten really kind of big. And there I meet Matt Munguia, and Matt Munguia takes me under his wing, and I start my final expense career with him. Really, that's how I start the foundation of my business. I've been with 360 since day one. He even comes with me to my first senior center lunch and learn. My mom is there, another agent from Houston is there. I serve McDonald's hamburgers, and I actually get my two first sales for final expense this way. I do final expense this way for about 3.5 years part-time. I'm still doing restaurant work. It's hard for me to leave for multiple reasons, but I get good at doing these presentations. So you see, you've got the Subway sandwich that I got from Walmart and all the fixins and trimmings. And then that's my friend Elisa. She's a licensed massage therapist, and she'd come with me to do chair massages. So I definitely would get a lot of attendees, got really creative. The way I would get my leads is doing a gift card raffle. And on here, you could see that I have the name, age, address, apartment number, and phone number. On the bottom, I have two little boxes. I want more information about final expense funeral coverage to protect my family, and I have funeral life insurance and need to review it. So what I would do is I would set the appointment right then and there as soon as I was done with the presentation, meet with them, or if they couldn't meet with me that day, I would do it the next day. I wouldn't go past that because the sense of urgency tended to wane after a few days. And I built my final expense business like this for 3.5 years. I eventually get really good, like I said, and I present at all San Antonio Housing Authority properties in a year and a half. I do it by myself. San Antonio Housing Property Authority has the housing for the seniors and for the disabled. So I go and do that throughout the city. And again, still doing this part-time. In 2018 through 2019, I start implementing new systems and methods. I create a Facebook business page, a how-to for senior center presentation, emails to property managers, laundromat and property event flyers. I develop my first client intake and client leave behind forms, and then I start buying direct mail and generating Facebook leads. Let's drag in a little. In 2018, this is what my Facebook business page looks like now. So if you're on Facebook and you want to follow me, this would be the place to do it. I go by Lifespan Insurance Co. And this is how to book senior centers. It's just a couple little snippets of the document that I created several years ago. It's actually like a 7 to 8 page document, but I wanted to give you an idea of how I was approaching these properties. and the things that I would say to the property manager. Sometimes they would call him a service coordinator, depending on the property. And then I would do a follow-up confirmation email to the property managers. And in there, I would tell them I normally host a luncheon and do a gift card giveaway. It's always free for the attendees, takes about an hour. And I would attach a copy of a previous event flyer along with a copy of my state license. So that way it legitimizes what I do. And I got really great response doing it this way. I also post flyers on site a few days before the event, and I use the same format for laundromat flyers. So I would get sales also from laundromats. I post this and I would get leads and sales that way. Posting them in busy laundromats really worked for me. This is what my final expense client intake form looks like now. It has evolved over the years, but it's got all the information that I need. If there was a couple and they both needed coverage, I would do one sheet per person. And in the middle, like we all know, tobacco, non-tobacco, height, weight, prescription meds, doctors and specialists, that's extremely important for us to make sure we get the right coverage. And there is that section that says Medicare Supplement ACA. So I am there trying to help them with their health insurance and cross-sell. And because I worded Medicare supplement, I am in compliance. This is my client leave behind sheet. It's basically a summary of of what we did that day, a summary of their benefits. And then in the middle, I would write, or I have there that you will be solicited by mail, TV, and your bank for cheap insurance. But those policies are not permanent coverage, and your policy has cash value. So I definitely was trying to scare them a little bit so they wouldn't cancel. And at the bottom, I have the number for the federal do not call list to remove themselves from telemarketing list. It doesn't eliminate, but it definitely reduces. And I either do that myself if we had time, or they would have the number to do that themselves when they had time on their own. And I do use this same form today. So any questions? Awesome, perfect. I'm gonna let this play and move on to the next section. So I have a moment of truth. I start to get bored because final expense feels like a one and done product. It's very transactional and not presenting me with challenges. And I start to wonder what my next move will be. And shortly after is when 2019, Luis introduces us to the world of Medicare. And just like you saw earlier, that is a picture taken from his YouTube. And he becomes part of 360 and he teaches us Medicare. Not only do we talk about Medicare, but like you heard earlier, we talk about cross sells, the importance of having hospital indemnity. I do that with ACA, not so much with my clientele with Medicare, but Luis really teaches everybody from day one to the point where it's the same teachings over and over at one point, and it just becomes second nature, and you know Medicare like the back of your hand. So Luis is an excellent teacher when it comes to needing a mentor. This is what my Medicare intake form looks like today. It is a one-pager. Again, in the middle, super important, is the doctors, meds, and specialists. We want to make sure that all of that is covered. Otherwise, we're not doing our due diligence and we're not putting them in the right plan. But that's what it is, and I would do one per. If there's a couple, I would do each one would have a separate intake sheet. And I start to generate and buy my own Medicare leads between 2019 and 2020. That's one of my first clients that I signed up for Medicare. And I host Medicare events. So the pictures on the ends are me at a local flea market. And the one in the middle is me during AEP at a clinic called Health Texas. And they are affiliated with United Healthcare. And at the same time, I meet my current part-time assistant, Patricia Trujillo. She also does the flea markets with me, so we're coordinating events together. But then I notice a big shift. This is when things get especially challenging. I notice a lot of competition from other local agents and agencies. Some Medicare and FE agencies have existed for many years, have large marketing budgets, and have established long-term relationships with doctors and have strong ties to decision makers. I'm also getting poor response from leads despite having more than one appointment setter, door knocking, and mailing refresher letters. It takes up a lot of my time and I start getting sick on a regular basis. Again, I start to feel disenfranchised by Medicare and wonder what my next move will be. I still do Medicare, but I do it differently. So in 2020, Luis introduces us to the world of ACA, and this is a snippet taken directly from his YouTube channel. And as you can see, as of the other day, he has 76 ACA public trainings. So he takes the time, just like he did with Medicare, to teach us agents day one ACA. ACA creates new opportunities. The pandemic is in full swing, so I use Facebook as a tool to make connections and sales. I use my personal and business Facebook pages for posts, and I join local and nationwide Facebook groups. This is an example of a huge group that I'm a part of. You can see that it has 98,000 members. And when it started in 2020, it was a grocery supply group. And that was when we were all scrambling for toilet paper and eggs. So it started off that way, but then it eventually became a 311 of sorts. And this group moderator, Sarah Lucy, just let it expand. So if you need to find anything in San Antonio, Bexar County, you can come on here and find it. You can see that people start asking for help on their health insurance. NGR means not grocery related. So they're asking help about not having a doctor, I need an agent. So what I would do is I would use the little magnifying glass and do keyword searches. I would also participate actively, not just me trying to solicit, but I do keyword searches like the words doctor, insurance, dental, and that's how I made some sales using this particular Facebook group. And Sarah Lucy and I know each other. I got to know her personally, so that's a good influence for me. I also have a new hobby. It's called SUV camping. It's basically camping outside of your SUV. There's different ways to do it, but this group is a specific group meant for ladies. It is across the United States, and it has 54,000 members. I noticed that group members start bringing up retirement and health insurance, and there ends up being a lot of confusion on what benefits to apply for. There's a lot of like people about to be 64, 65, and there's information switched around, and it's like, okay, I got to chime in. So I chime in with health insurance and retirement 101. If you decide to take this approach with Facebook groups, you have to be really clear on that it's not a solicitation. And then you're doing this on an educational standpoint. So what I do is, oh, Medicare is this. Here's a little bit about Medicare. Here's a little bit about Medicaid, the marketplace, and Social Security. This gets a lot of attention. This one post gets a ton of attention. The thing is I'm not licensed in all 50 states, and I don't know all of the states' Medicaid rules and regulations. But if I had the time, I could certainly say, hey, ladies, I'm licensed in these states, and I'm willing to do a Zoom, and then you can answer me questions at that time, no pressure. I think I have enough pull with this group that I can do that at any time of the year. So if you're taking that approach, I think that really tying your hobbies to your work is a good way to have pressure-free leads come in and they flow. It's on the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And that goes through August 15th. So those of you that need health insurance, and now it's time to get that, and I can absolutely help you. As always, my consultation, there's no charge for that. And I am able to help anybody that has either passed up on health insurance because they thought it was too expensive, or those who currently have health insurance, and I can help you lower your premiums by applying extra subsidies. This is something that's part of the American Recovery Act that was recently signed. So let me help you out, guys. Right now is the time. I hope you all are doing well and have a wonderful spring. Bye. So I skipped through, but basically I make posting on Facebook a regular part of my practice, both on my personal and my business page. My personal page surprisingly gets me a lot of people, even though I have only 700 and so people that I follow or are friends, but I do really well with Facebook. So I transitioned to 90% work from home. At this point, I find the work-life balance I've been looking for. I fine-tune my methods. I work mostly word of mouth, referrals from local FE and Medicare agents, and referrals from happy clients. I try generating Facebook leads, but I get poor response, so I stick to zero and low-cost methods. In fall 2022, I create a business TikTok account with the purpose of becoming more visible in the local community. I also repost to other social media, specifically Facebook. So if you are on TikTok, I would love to continue growing my following. If you notice, if anybody's on TikTok, once you get to over 1,000 or 1,000 likes, you actually open up new features of TikTok. I'm barely still trying to learn it, but this gives you an example of what I'm posting. And here are some screenshots too of my videos. I don't even have that many, but I've already made 3 sales from TikTok. I also post what I'm doing outside of work because I really want people to see that I'm a real human being with interests outside of work. I also have this little snippet of analytics. I don't know what to do with it yet because I don't know how to read it or I don't know how to use it, but I'll figure it out eventually. I'll get to it. In 2022 and 2023, I fine-tune my methods. I create an ACA client consent form. I update my ACA client intake form. I add a section for supplemental coverage, and I create a networking intake form. So client intake form, client consent, ACA compliance is changing. It's requiring consent to enroll clients. This is extremely new. So I am going to read it because I think I'm one of the few agents that is doing this so far. So on the top, you can see I give agent broker Roslyn Rosales permission to act as my insurance broker. As my broker, I give her permission to discuss health insurance, dental, vision, accidental, hospital indemnity, critical illness, disability, and life insurance coverage. Gather personal information needed to send me quotes, assist with plan selection, and enroll me into the plans I choose. Assist me with ongoing customer service. Allow her licensed agent, assistant Patricia Trujillo, to assist with enrollments and customer service. I also understand that neither Roslyn nor Patricia will charge me for their services, as Ms. Rosales is paid commissions from the insurance companies for keeping my policy active, and Ms. Trujillo is paid directly by Ms. Rosales. If I choose not to move forward with coverage or if I cancel my coverage, Ms. Rosales will not be my insurance broker and she will have no obligation to further assist me. So what I do is I send this through email. They reply with I consent. I take a screenshot and I save it to my Dropbox. This is what my 2023 ACA intake form looks like. I just updated it the other day. I have a section on top for initial conversation date, application date, and payment date. Referred by, because I do mostly referrals, plan info, and effective date. And then I've got the columns for name, applying yes or no, date of birth, social security, country of birth, do your dependents earn income, are you married filing separately, and are you immigrant DACA receiving Medicaid or SSDI? I know that sounds like really sensitive information, but it is asked on the application. So I'm doing it up front rather than waiting to hear whether or not I get a rejection, because you can get rejections with ACA. Then I've got the phone, email, address, zip code, and county. How many people are in your tax family? Tax family is everyone you file taxes with, including spouse and dependents you claim. The section for employer. Employer income is for the applicant, spouse, and dependent, both the name and the phone of the employer, and then applicant, spouse, dependent gross monthly income. I do by monthly because whenever I'd ask what's your annual income, they'd just be like dumbfounded. I have no idea. So I just do the math for them. Down here, I have a section for self-employed and income. Again, these folks, some of them are self-employed. So I've got the applicant, spouse, dependent, and then I do net income with that because it's a little different on the calculation. Just like the other intake forms, I have a section down here for prescription, dose, type, your doctor's first and last names, address, phone number, and specialty. I need to make sure, just like Medicare, that I have everything covered with that person's plan. I'm not gonna miss anything. And then the last part says payment info will be collected by Roslyn Rosales to activate your plan. If you have a $0 plan, no payment is needed. So this is what I use in every ACA intake. It's my first sheet. I have a second sheet. And this one requires the prospect to mark off, I like more info or I prefer to decline coverage. And I talk about dental and vision with Emeritus, accidental medical expense with Allstate Health Solution, hospital indemnity with Heartland National was actually one of my favorite things to sell because it's so easy. Critical illness with Mutual of Omaha and Aetna, if they want something more than what the Heartland National product offers in term and whole life insurance. So I cannot get from my client, you did not offer me these things, because I ask it in the consent form and I ask it again on page 2. So I'm crossing my T's and dotting my I's. I also develop a network intake form. I do the name of event, date, how did you hear of event, location, and who did I go to the event with. And what I do is I tape the business card along with a brief summary of the conversation I had that day. I do it as soon as I get home from that event. Then I email them and I follow up. Of the events that I've been to, it's only been about 4. They just started kind of getting popular again. Only 2 people have responded. However, one of them is a small lawyer's firm, attorney's firm that needs health insurance solutions because they're paying too much on their group insurance. So that's a big thing for me that I'm pivoting to at ACA. And the other one is a financial planner that has already given me ACA leads, and they're turning 65 in like a year and a half. So I've got a couple. So this intake networking is working extremely well for me. You got to really do the work and follow up with these folks, though, because some of these people just won't do anything with it. So ACA becomes my niche. And instead of me quantifying my business, because I was trying to do, oh, I did this many ACA, I did this many Medicare, it just blew up in my face and it didn't work for me. So now I have sustainable growth, intent, abundance, focus, and purpose. So it's a more of a holistic view, which fits better for my personality and my growth. So I see this every day when I sit down in my tiny little home office. It's really the size of this area. What does sustainable growth look like for me? Stop earning leads for a year. That's this year. Just going to give it a try. Focus on building relationships. Transition my ACA T65 clients to Medicare. That is how I'm doing Medicare. Only my T65s and only referrals. Place the majority of clients with my preferred carriers, because we all do have that even in the ACA world. I steer clear of carriers and known issues because ACA is a little more volatile than Medicare, so you get to know that as you start to do it a few years. Suggest plans, ACA plans with monthly premiums, and steer clear of advertising free health insurance. So I'm essentially building value. I'm also building sustainable relationships with local people of influence, CPAs and tax preparers, retirement and financial planners, funeral and pre-need agents. That's how I met Patty. She is a pre-need agent and she sends me both Medicare and ACA. Medicare and life only agents, some people never want to even touch ACA, so give them to me. P&C agents and nonprofits and small businesses. The last 2 points are working very well for me. I have more than one nonprofit in line waiting for me to get their ACA set up using ICRA, which is a whole other thing that Luis will talk about, and small businesses. The tools I use are cell phone, iPad, and Apple Pen. Wall calendar and planner, home printer with HP Instant Ink, which is a service that is dependent on how many pages you use, and the ink is delivered straight to your door. Microsoft Suite, Word and Excel, Google Sheets, Docs, and email. And I'm so sorry I'm not with the email, but I will get on it this year. Canva is how I did this presentation, and I also do my Facebook posts using Canva. Notability is an app that I use in my iPad for final expense and life insurance, because you can use your iPad and write on it just like paper. A fax mobile app. When I was on the road a lot, I used Road Warrior to route my routes. Zoom, Google Voice, Dropbox, because it's HIPAA compliant. So is Ring Central. I just implemented that recently. Agent CRM, which is the CRM that Luis uses. Product-specific enrollment platforms, and both, like I mentioned, social media and personal business. Game-changing methods for me. I use social media as a learning and sales tool. I have a hyper focus on the local community. I network at business and chamber events. I network with local social media content creators and moderators. So like I said, Sarah Lucy and I are friends, and she invites me to events. I also just made friends with a group of local TikTokers that have a large following. So I could see how that's going to grow into something really wonderful. Scheduling follow-up meetings with the networking partners that I meet at networking events. Establishing personal and professional boundaries. Setting office hours, and hiring a part-time assistant. The last 3 bullet points I'm going to go into detail. Establishing personal professional boundaries, prioritizing personal family and vacation time. That goes on my calendar first, and then I work around it. Communicating with friends and family about my availability, especially during AEP. I'm just going to tell them, hey, I'm not busy. I'm so busy, I may not be able to be available for certain events. Communicating with my clients about my availability. I want them to know that I do have a life outside of work, but I am very open to saying I may not be able to do it today, but I could do it on this day. Setting office hours. My office hours are from Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And if somebody calls me outside of that, Ring Central gives them a different message and tells them I'm available on this other time during the day. I create client deadlines, especially since ACA, the first of the following month is when their policy is effective, and they need to submit their application and their first payment. Payments are usually required with ACA unless you're targeting $0, but I push them so they can get their ID in time. Setting boundaries with other agents, especially newbies that come up to me and ask me for a lot of help and guidance. I'd be happy to answer your questions, but I'm so busy, I don't always have the time to do that. So I do set some boundaries with the agents. And then making definitive decisions and sticking to them. That's how I've changed my game. I want to go ahead and maybe cut this short here in a second, but hiring a part-time assistant, she helps me inputs client in the CRM and sets reminders like T65s. She organizes my client intake forms in a physical filing cabinet. She keeps track of my active and inactive clients, sends birthday, thank you, and anniversary cards, and she comes with me on networking events. The methods I'll implement next are using automations in a CRM, automations in Ring Central, how to create a YouTube channel because David Duford and Luis have an excellent one and I need to follow in their footsteps. Mail and email quarterly newsletters. Teach my assistant to enroll ACA clients. I need to duplicate myself. So if I have her, I can do twice as many enrollees during open enrollment. Create ACA ICRA Small Business Benefits Packet. ICRA is a way of using ACA as a solution for small businesses when traditional health insurance, group insurance just does not work for them. And it's coming to my desk often. So we're looking at groups size 2 to 20 in my situation. I'm going to factor in sick and emergency leave. And because I like to camp out of my SUV, I'm going to live the van life during the summer and travel to Georgia and Tennessee because that's where my friends live. And then I'll grassroots there. And then I'm just going to skip all the way through to the end. Accessibility that we have to people is one of the lessons learned. Accessibility we have to decision makers, amplifying our visibility, getting to know our market, selling on value, not in price, and keeping a learner's mentality. So long as we're open to learning, we're open to evolving and growing here. I want you to, I'm going to leave you with this. Jerry Seinfeld is being interviewed by Howard Stern, and he's just asking him, like, why are you always working on material?
Oh, you have it so easy. You're so naturally funny, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you are naturally funny, and you do have that ability to figure that stuff out, but they don't realize the amount of work that goes into it.
It's like going into the gym every day.
It's hard.
You know how you walk in every day and you go, oh, geez, I gotta do this again.
Yeah, it sounds like a tortured life, and you
It
said
is, it is. But you know what? Your blessing in life is when you find the torture you're comfortable with. That's marriage, it's kids, it's work, it's exercise.
Yeah.
It's not eating the food you want to eat.
Right.
Find the torture you're comfortable with and you'll do well.
Amen. Amen to that, right? That's a good way to end this presentation.